Now that we know that there are two major groupings of cells, the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes, we're going to start talking about all the little bits and pieces that are found inside of eukaryotes. Okay? Remember that prokaryotes came first. They're very, very simple, very, very small, and they do not have a nucleus, and they do not have all the little bits and pieces known as membrane-bound organelles. So most of these organelles that we're going to be studying in the next couple of days are going to be for eukaryotes only, because eukaryotes are larger, they're more advanced, and so they have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles, or all the little bits and pieces. So the word organelles means little organs, and that's what these guys are. They're the little organs that function inside of the cell to keep it alive. Now, today, in part 1 of cellular organelles, we're going to look at organelles that are found in both plant and animal cells, because both plants and animals are eukaryotes. And all of the ones we're going to talk about today are going to work together to complete their major mission. So for you to be successful in today's topic, you need to be able to do the following 3 things. 1, you need to be able to recognize the organelles from pictures. 2, you need to be able to describe the specific job that that organelle does. And 3, you need to be able to talk about how these organelles work together. So sort of a roadmap of how they do what they do. As I'm describing these, I'll tell you their job, I'll show you pictures, and I'll give an analogy relating the cell to a city to try to help you to remember these ideas. We're going to start with the nucleus. The nucleus is the largest organelle in the cell. It is very easy to see, and it was the first organelle to receive a name because they could see it on those very simple first microscopes. The nucleus is sometimes referred to as the brain of the cell because it controls everything the cell does. It tells the cell what to make, when to make it, how many to make it, how to make it, everything. So it orchestrates everything that's going on in the cell at all times. It does this because it stores the DNA. Remember, the DNA is a nucleic acid, so it's made out of nucleotides, and it's the blueprint for you. It's your genetic material. So the DNA is what is really orchestrating everything. Okay? So if we say that a cell is a city, the nucleus would be like City Hall. It's kind of in the center of the city, and it regulates what all the cell is doing. And it holds the blueprints. So the DNA is like blueprints for proteins. It's the instructions. How do you make proteins? And if you wanted to get a blueprint for a house, or say Beaufort High School, you have to go to City Hall and you ask for the blueprints, and then you can see how was Beaufort High School made. Okay, so that's how all this relates in our analogy. The nucleus also makes RNA, the other type of nucleic acid, and we'll learn about that more in some coming units. Within the nucleus is a smaller organelle known as the nucleolus. Now be careful, nucleus and nucleolus, if you just glance at the words, look very similar. So it could trick you on multiple choice questions. Make sure you're being very careful and taking your time and paying attention to what you're doing. Okay? So inside of the nucleus, we have this little nucleolus. Its job is to make ribosomes. And we'll learn a little bit about ribosomes in just a minute. The nucleus also has a nuclear envelope or nuclear membrane. This is a very thin outer membrane that protects the nucleus, and it acts sort of as the skin of the nucleus. It decides what's allowed to go in, what's allowed to go out, and what has to stay put. Okay? So far we have the nucleolus inside of the nucleus protected by a nuclear envelope, and inside the nucleus being really protected the DNA, your code, your blueprint. Directly connected to the nuclear envelope of the nucleus is the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER. The job of the ER is to act like a transportation system. It's a series of long, winding tunnels that travel all throughout the cell. So this is sort of like your road system or highway system within the city. Okay? It transports things. Now you have two types of ER. Directly connected to the nucleus is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or the RER. It looks rough because it has ribosomes attached to it, which makes it look all bumpy. The rough ER is not only the transportation system, but also is where proteins are made and then processed a little bit. Then as you move away from the nucleus, so you have rough ER, then smooth endoplasmic reticulum, or SER. The smooth ER looks smooth because it doesn't have any ribosomes on it, so it's not all bumpy. The smooth ER, again, is part of that transportation system, but it is also where phospholipids are going to be made, and it's where proteins are going to be taken from the rough ER, sent into the smooth ER, and then it's going to be packaged into vesicles. So there's your word of the day, vesicle. A vesicle is just a fancy science way of saying package. But just so you know, the UPS guy does not think it's funny for you to be excited about having him deliver a vesicle to you. So just FYI. So here's some more images for you. So if you look all the way to the left, you can see the nucleolus and then the nucleus surrounded by the nuclear envelope. Directly connected, we have the rough ER, which is polka dotted with those blue little ribosomes. Keep moving out, and we have the smooth ER. Okay. So let's talk about those ribosomes a little bit more. Ribosomes are made of RNA, a nucleic acid, and proteins. That's what makes up their little shape. Now remember, ribosomes are made in the nucleolus within the nucleus. They're composed of two subunits, a large top and a small bottom. They come together to create a functioning full ribosome. The job of a ribosome is to make proteins. So in our city analogy, the ribosomes are the factories. They are building everything that the city needs. Okay. In the image, ribosomes, when viewed within the cell, are really, really tiny. So they're always represented basically as little polka dots. So in this image, they're represented as all the little blue polka dots that you see there. You can find ribosomes in two places within the cell. They can be alone, floating in the cytoplasm. Remember, the cytoplasm is that thick, jello-like substance that fills up the cell. The ribosomes found in the cytoplasm make proteins for that cell to use for itself, however it needs them. Then the ribosomes that we found attached to the rough ER, which makes it rough and bumpy, those proteins are going to be exported out of the cell. So these may be proteins that neighboring cells need or that your body as a whole might need. Okay? So make sure you know that they're found in two places. So little polka dots in the cytoplasm, little polka dots attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The last organelle that we need to talk about is the Golgi apparatus, sometimes just called the Golgi. Also sometimes called the Golgi body. So make sure you can recognize all the different names that it may be called. The Golgi apparatus in drawings kind of reminds me of a stack of pancakes. Okay? because it's a series of sacs that are flattened and stacked together. So it kind of looks like pancakes. The job of the Golgi apparatus is to package and ship proteins. These proteins are for export out of the cell. So the Golgi takes the proteins from the endoplasmic reticulum, which is the highway system, takes them, and then it's going to modify it. It's basically going to stamp it, put a stamp of approval on it. The way that it does this is by modifying it slightly, by adding some fats or some carbohydrates, and just slightly changing the shape so that it's the final product ready to do its job. Okay? So this is sort of like your post office or your UPS shipping center. Okay? It receives everything and decides where it's allowed to go and stamps it to go there. Okay? So that's the Golgi's main job, package and ship proteins. But it also has a secondary function, and that is to make lysosomes, okay, which is our last organelle we're going to talk about today, the lysosomes, okay, made by the Golgi apparatus. Okay, so a lysosome, it's made by the Golgi apparatus, and its job is to digest things. It's going to digest food, break it down into parts that the cell can use, bacteria, so bacteria that could have caused disease or killed the cell. If a lysosome gets a hold of it, it will digest it and break it down. And also, these organelles we're talking about, sometimes they get old, they get worn out, they're not working as well. So the lysosome will digest it, break it down into its component pieces so that those parts can be reused. So back to our city analogy, the lysosome would be like the garbage dump and recycling center of our cell. In images, they just kind of look like little bubbles because they're just little sacs that digest things for you. Okay, so here we go. Let's bring it all together. In the upper right-hand corner here, we see our nucleus. The nucleus contains the instructions of how to do everything that the cell needs to do, the DNA. So what it's going to do is it's going to create a blueprint, a message. It's going to send that message out to the ribosomes, either one located on the ER or some located free-floating in the cytoplasm. The ribosome is going to take that message, and since the ribosome is the factory, it's going to build that protein. Okay? It's going to take that message, read it, and build what it is told to build. So the ribosome builds a protein. If that ribosome is on the ER, it's going to hand that protein to the rough ER, which is going to be the transportation system. So that protein is going to travel through the rough ER until it gets out to the smooth ER. The smooth ER is going to then package it into a vesicle and send that protein to the Golgi apparatus. Here's our stack of flattened sacs, the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is going to check out the protein, and it's going to stamp that protein, maybe by adding a little bit of lipid to it. It's going to repackage it into a vesicle where it can then be sent out and can travel throughout the cell to where it needs to go, or even exit the cell if it's something that the body needs. Okay, so there's your big picture. Make sure you can describe what I just described, being able to walk through step by step from the nucleus to the ribosome to the ER to the Golgi. Okay, that's how they work together.